Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post. University of Michigan PANICS shuts down DEI office and all campus-wide DEI programs. From Politico, University of Michigan closes its DEI office, ending multi-million-dollar investment into diversity. And here's why this is such a big deal. The university's diversity, equity, and inclusion programs have long been a model for schools across the country. So when this one gets shut down, it shuts down a lot of them, and a lot of new ones aren't going to be popping up so quick. From the College Fix, University of Michigan to shut down DEI office, discontinue campus-wide DEI programming. It's all coming apart. The University of Michigan, one of the leading academic bastions of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the country, is shuttering the doors of its Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and shutting down its model DEI program. In an email on Thursday, the university's leaders pointed to the court-ordered enforcement of President Donald Trump and his executive orders on restoring merit-based opportunity and ending DEI programs across the country, as well as the Dear Colleague letter from the Department of Education that threatened to eliminate federal funding for universities that did not eliminate their DEI efforts. And they're not playing around. They've just canceled a ton of grants from the NIH for ridiculous diversity, equity, and inclusion studies. Look at this. From Inside Higher Ed, as NIH pulls funding, scientists worries about frightening implications. The implications are if you're doing nonsense DEI studies, and they're not getting funded anymore. As a result, Michigan's DEI office, which launched in 2016, the start of the first Trump administration, and the Office for Health, Equity, and Inclusion will close. The university's DEI 2.0 strategic plan, the reimagined version of their original umbrella strategy for DEI across their schools and colleges, will be discontinued. Quote, "These decisions have not been made lightly. We recognize that changes are significant and will be challenging for many of us, especially those whose lives and careers have been enriched by and dedicated to programs that are now pivoting," the announcement said. Multiple universities and school systems across the country have caved under the scrutiny from the Trump administration, removing DEI content from their websites and shutting down DEI programs. But the University of Michigan has long been considered a model for DEI initiatives across the country, ground zero for institutionalized racism in colleges and universities throughout the country. The end of its DEI office signals a big win for the Trump administration as it moves to end the focus on DEI in the American education system. It's a stark contrast from the launch of the DEI 1.0 program a decade ago, when the university began to, quote, "enact far-reaching foundational change at every level in every unit," and poured nearly $250 million into the program, according to an investigation from the New York Times. The program made Michigan a national example, and in the face of backlash on critical race theory and widespread protests over the war in Gaza, the university strengthened those efforts. They hired even more people in DEI offices and expanded the program. Their DEI initiatives have not been without controversy, especially in their struggle to enroll Black students and to address complaints over campus protests following the October 7th attacks in Israel. Even as other universities started ending the use of diversity consideration across all hiring and admissions in the last year, Michigan had yet to enact widespread changes. Now, diversity statements will not be allowed for hiring, which they announced in December, but also for admissions, promotion, awards, or any other assessments. They're also updating their websites to ensure compliance with federal law. Going forward, the university will be increasing investments in financial aid, expanding scholarship programs for students, and expanding mental health support. Certain student multicultural spaces will remain open, according to the university. And that must mean that certain spaces will not. Quote, "We are deeply grateful for the meaningful contributors of leaders, faculty, and staff who have advanced our ongoing efforts to create an ever more inclusive and respectful community," according to the announcement. College Fix knows what's up. The move is being hailed as a major victory for critics of DEI, as the University of Michigan is known for its campus-wide DEI programming, which had been embedded into all 51 units at the institution. The announcement follows a report on the university by the College Fix, which found that 1,100 employees at the school worked either full-time or part-time on DEI-related efforts at the public university. 1,100 employees in one public university working on DEI. It also comes in the wake of a Trump administration Office for Civil Rights Dear Colleague letter that argued DEI programs in higher education often discriminate based on race in violation of Title VI. The letter declared that DEI efforts are essentially discriminatory and colleges and universities could lose federal funding if they employ them. And while the University of Michigan spent $250 million on DEI programs over the last 8 years, annual student surveys have shown that many of the institution's students report feeling like they do not belong on campus. And that's not just the white students, it's all the students. And according to observers, they're expecting there to be lots of layoffs. Quote, "We are eliminating programs, eliminating affiliated staff, and ending the DEI 2.0 strategy," according to University of Michigan Regent Sarah Hubbard. She continued, quote, "Late last year, we ended the use of diversity statements in faculty hiring. This has now expanded university-wide, and statements related to a person's identity or commitment to DEI will no longer be solicited or considered in admissions, hiring, promotion, awards, or reviews for faculty and staff." Quote, "Ending DEI programs will also allow us to better expand diversity of thought and free speech on our campus," she said. Well, that's all anybody ever wanted. Give everyone an opportunity to contribute and to show what they can do and then succeed or fail based on their merit. Student-focused services currently under the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion will be transferred to other offices dedicated to enhancing student opportunities, according to campus leaders. Additionally, the Office of the General Counsel, that's their legal department, will initiate an expedited review to ensure all policies, programs, and practices comply with federal law and guidance, according to their memo. It sounds like they had a nice conversation with the Department of Education and they got smart at this university and said, "Hey, look, we're not looking for problems. We thought this was a good idea. We recognize this is not considered to be legal anymore, certainly not under the current administration. So let us know how we could work with you to get out of this situation, and we will get out of this situation, and we'll get out of it quick." Because they've got a detailed plan here on how they're taking apart this DEI nonsense at the university. And it is a big project if they've got 1,100 people involved in it. And then they take those 1,100 people and they infuse the rest of the university with it. So it really is everywhere. So you've got to kind of pull it out, root and branch, and make sure it's all gone. The university will simultaneously increase funding for student programs, including financial aid for families earning $125,000 or less, mental health resources, academic support with better advising and AI tools, and cultural and ethnic events, it adds. Quote, "The changes happening at Michigan's flagship are all the more striking given that there's been no state legislation requiring universities to scale back or cut their diversity efforts. In fact, this month, the Democrat-controlled Michigan Senate approved a resolution supporting policies that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, according to the Chronicle of Higher Education. Conservative-leaning groups and normal people and advocates quickly praised the decision. Quote, "University of Michigan was considered the DEI school, with $250 million spent since 2016, a seismic shift," from the American Council of Trustees and Alumni, who wrote this on Twitter. Stephen McGuire, a fellow in Campus Freedom at the ACTA, stated, quote, "The decision to roll back University of Michigan's massive diversity bureaucracy is a momentous one that will have a profound and positive impact not only in Michigan, but across American higher education. It really is a major win because other colleges and universities looking to these guys as an example, and then also having a staffing resource at University of Michigan to help those colleges and universities spread their diversity nonsense throughout all these other institutions, all that's going to be gone now." The Goldwater Institute's Director of Educational Policy, Matt Bienberg, stated in a news release that the university's actions are indeed a cause for celebration. However, Bienberg added, quote, "To truly restore the intellectual integrity of the university, its administrators must ensure that the institution also eliminates DEI requirements currently forced upon students throughout its mandatory academic course requirements, including those offered under different labels, such as the required race and ethnicity category that undergraduate students must still complete." From the New York Times, under pressure, Psychology Accreditation Board suspends diversity standards. As the Trump administration threatens to strip accrediting bodies of their power, many are scrambling to purge diversity requirements. This is also crucially important. Why is it so important? Here's why. The American Psychological Association, which sets standards for professional training in mental health, has voted to suspend its requirement that postgraduate programs show a commitment to diversity in recruitment and hiring. So if you're any kind of mental health professional, you are being forced to prove you will show a commitment to diversity in recruitment and hiring. Professionals need accreditation in most situations to do their jobs, to have their careers. And to see this go away is a huge help. The decision comes as accrediting bodies throughout higher education scramble to respond to the executive order signed by President Trump attacking diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. It pauses a drive to broaden the profession of psychology, which is disproportionately white and female, at a time of rising distress among young Americans. Yeah, we're not going to broaden the profession. Let's just make sure everyone is competent who's working. The APA is the chief accrediting body for professional training in psychology and the only one recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. It provides accreditation to around 1,300 training programs, including doctoral internships and postdoctoral residencies. President Trump has made accrediting bodies a particular target in his crusade against DEI programs, threatening in one campaign video to fire the radical left accreditors that have allowed our colleges to become dominated by Marxist maniacs and lunatics, and accept applications for new accreditors. That means they would lose all of their professional status. It would take about 2 seconds and an executive order, and they'd get wiped out. Department of Justice officials have pressured accrediting bodies in recent weeks, warning the American Bar Association in a letter that it might lose its status unless it repealed diversity mandates. The ABA voted in late February to suspend its diversity and inclusion standard for law schools. The concession by the APA, a bastion of support for diversity programming, so you know how much damage these guys have caused, is a particular landmark. The association has made combating racism a central focus of its work in recent years, and to combat racism, they perpetuated racism. And at Inside Higher Ed, as the NIH pulls funding, scientists worries about frightening implications. What was this scientist studying that they lost their grant? Let's check it out. After months of uncertainty about the future of federally funded research, the National Institutes of Health this month started canceling grants it deemed unscientific. So far, that includes research into preventing HIV and AIDS, managing depressive symptoms in transgender, non-binary, and gender-diverse patients, intimate partner violence during pregnancy, and how cancer affects impoverished Americans. I can tell you without a research study, cancer is bad, like no matter how rich you are. I can also say if you're poor, it's probably worse. In letters canceling the grants, the NIH said those and other research projects no longer effectuate agency priorities. But the world's largest funder of biomedical research didn't stop there. The agency went on to tell researchers that research programs based primarily on artificial and non-scientific categories, including amorphous equity objectives, are antithetical to scientific inquiry, do nothing to expand our knowledge of living systems, provide low returns on investment, and ultimately do not enhance health, lengthen life, or reduce illness, according to a March 18th letter sent to the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. Katie Bogan, a PhD student in the clinical psychology program at UNL, found out via the letter that NIH was canceling the $171,000 grant supporting her dissertation research. She was planning to explore the links between bisexual women's disclosure of past sexual violence experience to a current romantic partner and subsequent symptoms, including traumatic stress, alcohol use, and risk for violence re-victimization with their current relationship. She started work on the project last May and was set to start data collection at the end of this month. $171,000 for that? Yes, but now it's canceled. The NIH told Bogan and other researchers that so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion studies are often used to support unlawful discrimination on the basis of race and other protected characteristics, which harms the health of Americans. And that NIH policy moving forward won't support such research programs. No corrective action is possible for Bogan's project because the premise of this award is incompatible with agency priorities, and no modification of the project could align the project with agency priorities. Last week, Bogan told Inside Higher Ed that she was inspired to pursue this topic because she herself is a bisexual woman with a trauma history. I mean, that's terrific for her, but why should the federal government be paying for any of this? The answer is the federal government should not be paying for any of this. If you've got something legitimately to research, complete a new grant request. They will look at it. They'll get back to you. But if it's nonsensical, if it's diversity, equity, and inclusion related, if you're trying to find out why certain people with certain sexual preferences have certain problems dealing in their relationships with violence and things of that nature, it probably isn't going to get accepted. Come up with a new topic, put in a legitimate grant request, and maybe it gets accepted next time.